So welcome to today's webinar on soil health. It is the first of our webinar in the Sustainability Footprint Webinar Series. We will be having more such webinars on sustainability-related topics, so please watch the space for more on that. You're so welcome to post your comments or your questions in the chat box, and we will be addressing the questions at the end of the session today. I'm Nitasha Baijnath-Pillay, your host and moderator for today. I am from Hortgro. I am the Resource Management and Sustainability Manager. For those of you who do not know, Hortgro is an industry organization, and we provide support and represent the palm and stone growers in South Africa. We do this through research, market development, economic transition and transformation, as well as sustainable agricultural processes. I'm very excited with our panelists for today, who's got a wealth of knowledge on one topic that most farmers will be very interested on: soil health and its impact or benefits and significance on sustainable agriculture. Allow me to introduce the panelists to you. On my left is Mr. Anton de Jager. He is a qualified soil food web consultant, and he's also the estate manager at De Jager in Sierras in the Western Cape. Mr. de Jager is working on one of the key projects, which is involving transitioning from a more chemical farming approach to a more regenerative farming approach. Mr. Hendrik Pohl is on my extreme left. He is an independent technical advisor with a passion for sustainable agriculture and regenerative farming practices. His expertise is in palm fruit cultivation and regenerative farming. Hendrik is dedicated to promoting environmentally friendly and efficient farming methods, and we will hear more of these practices in the webinar today. He's also the founder of Holistic Horticulture, and he brings with him a wealth of experience in the use of composting, mulching, cover crop, and other innovative methods. Mr. Matthew Addison, in the middle, has been working in the agricultural sector since 1987, when he first was employed to establish the Integrated Pest Management Program for the palm and stone industry. He was the Crop Protection Program Manager at Hortgro and has been actively involved in research, including work on the orchard floor ecology and some pests, such as the polyphagous shothole borer and the spotted wing Drosophila. So welcome. Thank you so much for your time. And let's get into it. Anton, my first question is for you. You are driven by a desire to regenerate land and create sustainability by focusing on soil health and biodiversity to transform ecosystems. Can you tell us what are the benefits of good quality soil, especially for the palm and stone sector in South Africa?
I'm going to speak from a farmer's perspective, and I'm going to explain to you what we saw while being busy with this program. First of all, I must say this has been a humbling experience to me for the past 5 years. I don't see myself as an expert, more as a learner. We see good quality soil as the foundation of a thriving orchard. What we saw over the past 4 years was enhanced crop yields. As the soil gets healthier, we saw that the yields went up. And we work in close collaboration with Arbolijn Estate, the Van der Merwe brothers. Together we form a study group and we share our experiences. And it's more than 300 hectares that we've been farming, say, this new regenerative way. So we all saw on 5 different farms that the regenerative orchards outperformed the chemical orchards. And the quality of the fruits were even better than the chemical orchards. That's the first thing that we saw. The second thing that we saw was there was an increase in resilience of the trees. I think it was 3 years ago, 3 or 4 years, I can't remember, we were in a severe drought. The first year I thought that was regenerative farming going out of the window. The second year, we experienced significant hail damage on our farms. And then I thought this was the end of it. But the next year, we harvested bumper crops on the regenerative orchards and the chemical orchards. It was as if they were running out of steam.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Thank you.
The last thing that we saw was the need for inputs reduced because we no longer use chemical fertilizers, no herbicides, and we are starting to cut down on pest control as well. So in conclusion, I would just like to say that investing in soil health pays off immediately, offering both short-term benefits like increased yields, better quality fruits, and in long-term advantages such as sustainability and climate resilience.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. So Anton, if I want to know what a good and healthy soil looks like, what is it that I look out for? How would I tell or how would I know soil is healthy?
I think if you ask that question to 10 different people, they'll all give you a different answer. Once again, from our perspective, we saw that chemically the soil came into balance, and we always compare the soil from the regenerative orchards to the chemical orchards. Stuff like the pH, the cation exchange capacity, nutrient levels, everything just came in the right proportions of balance. The next thing that we saw from the biological diversity increased. When I speak about biological diversity, I refer to the bacteria, the fungi, the protozoa, the nematodes. All these numbers increased and they were in the right ratios as well. The third thing that we saw was there was a huge improvement in the soil structure itself. Aggregates were starting to form, and once you see aggregates, you know better water infiltration, better root growth, the compaction was decreasing. And something that I noticed was if you smell the soil in the chemical orchards, it's got a froggy, a para, anaerobic smell about it, whilst the ones in the regenerative orchards has got a nice earthly fresh smell because of all the microbes in it.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. And I, like you said, everyone's perspective will be different, so we will ask that from the other panelists as well. But Hendrik, for a question for you, your commitment on sustainable agriculture has led to significant advancements in apple cultivation and eco-friendly farming methods. What are some of these eco-friendly farming methods and what are the benefits for farmers?
Thank you, Nitasha. These farming methods include alternative solutions to known needs of fruit crops for optimal production. I think the scientific approach and the chemical approach of the last 60, 70 odd years have made a significant contribution in exactly what we need to produce fruit, and that cannot change. So you must look to alternatives. The main focus is to change the soil. To make an impact on the soil, focus is placed on plant feeding needs by introducing composts, mulches, and cover crops into the system. Soil-aimed chemical inputs are reduced in terms of chemical fertilizer, but also reducing herbicide, pesticide, and disease control inputs. Pest and disease management are impacted on the tree to include strict monitoring to make informed and specific control choices, to always be considerate to the bigger environment and the ecosystem. I don't think all conventional methods can be changed, but we can certainly introduce and integrate alternatives into that. Benefits include economical benefits as we significantly start to reduce the chemical fertilizer input with a more cost-effective alternative with compost. Less herbicide dependence and no need to control nematodes and woolly apple aphids if you take apples as an example. ecological benefits by introducing microbial and fungal diversity, like Anton has mentioned, is really a game changer in the orchard to supply nutrients to the trees, but also controlling mainstream soil-borne disease in the orchards. Again, like woolly apple aphid, nematodes, it even has an impact on mite control. And it will be interesting to see in the future what the effect of this will be on apple replant disease, where you have multi-generations on the same soil. So in short, resilience and adaptability to the environment, ecological economy, and resilience is the key benefits of changing the system.
Fantastic, thank you. So what are some of the processes or the practices that we should not do to the soil, and why?
Never leave the soil naked or uncovered. We don't walk around naked, do we? Soil needs a little layer or a mulch, as we would call it. I think the best practice will be to use soil for its intended purpose, and that is to be a host to living plants and roots. For soil water management, living soil needs water and oxygen to be productive and to be alive. The soil needs to breathe, just like we have to. Overtilling the soil, break down vital soil structure, and also the soil destroys the microbial and fungal network in the soil that we are trying to recreate in the ecosystem. We need to understand that the crop that we are farming or producing has its place in the ecological succession. And we are monoculturing those orchards by tilling it and changing that ecology. First of all, apple orchards does not belong in the environment where we are growing it naturally, so we must engineer that conditions to make it optimal for production. Lastly, we underestimate the intelligence and the ability of the soil to supply the ecosystem with its specific needs. Maybe that's not something that we must avoid in the soil, but that is something that we must avoid in ourselves and not underestimate the ecology to be productive.
Yeah, thank you so much. Matthew, my question is for you. From your perspective, what are the indicators of healthy soil to you? And give us some example of how healthy soil can contribute to pest control and plant immunity.
Thank you, Nitasha. Yeah, it's a very broad question. So to extend it, including soil and what's growing in it in terms of cover crops. So the indicators for a healthy soil, in short, is diversity and balanced diversity. Stuff that is in balance, not oscillating. In terms of the benefits, and ultimately I'm an entomologist, not a soil scientist, are the benefits accrued by having diverse cover crops, healthy soils. Hendrik's referred to it already. Biological mite control is one of the big outcomes. We've done a lot of research on it. It depends on plant diversity and predators. The other one is, and Hendrik has referred to it, no naked soil. You put a mulch in or a green cover crop under a tree and your woolly aphid problem goes away on apples, certainly. Those are two big benefits that we've seen. And yes, there are others.
Wonderful, thank you. So Hortgro had funded a 4-year study of cover crops and the orchard floor ecology in Ceres. Tell us a little more about the trials and what are some of the results?
Industry, yeah, thanks. Industry funded a 4-year trial with the help of Hendrik. We had 2 sites, one Koerbokkerveld and one in the Warmbokkerveld. And the basic question was, is diversity beneficial? So we diversified our cover crops. So our treatments range from a grass-only cover crop through to a very diverse cover crop. We had four treatments. And we also treated undertree. So we went from a straw compost mulch and elaborated it down, and our diverse treatment were a number of species planted under the tree. And we did a variety of measures in those orchards. We were very uncertain in terms of what was the best group of measures. So we tended to do as many as we could, and they included Solvita, very, very biologically orientated soil testing. We looked at nematode diversity. We looked at plant diversity. We looked at some primitive insect springtail diversity. We did litter breakdown. We did a variety of stuff. And yeah, the results were really compelling. And I think that the take home was the diverse cover crops were beneficial. We planted once off and then measured it for 4 years. So there's a succession of plants in there. And it took 4 years to stabilize after not very heavy cultivation. So that was a take home. And yeah, we had good biocontrol in those orchards as well.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So when it comes to cover crops, what are some of the do's and don'ts? Well, how do I choose a cover crop for my orchard?
My fellow panel members can comment on this, but my experience, what's good for one orchard isn't necessarily good for the next orchard. So there's within farm differences in terms of aspect, slope, temperature regimes, soil type. So there isn't one sort of one size fits all. One of the ways to overcome that is just plant a lot of diversity, which doesn't necessarily appeal to me. So a lot of it is developing an idea of what is suitable. And I must note all of these cover crop species come from the seed company. There's no harm in that, but we do have to look at our indigenous or potential cover crop species that are indigenous. The don'ts is to plant, and we did make the mistake, we planted buckwheat. Industry was funding research looking at nematode hosts, and buckwheat was a very good one. So Hendrik got the tractor and plowed it out, and we replanted. There is a lot of research that needs to go in there for nitrogen fixation is one of them. The other one is weed suppression, continuity. I would prefer not to have to replant cover crops every year. Let the succession come in, and you need a balance. Again, we're back to the balance question in there, where one species doesn't take over.
Thank you. Hendrik, Anton, do you want to add anything with regards to choosing cover crops? Like to add anything further to that?
I just think, Nitasha, thank you. In choosing a cover crop, it's like Matthew said, it's not a generic thing. And the whole farming system, in terms of the goals in managing the orchard, should be taken into consideration. You don't want to plant a nitrogen fixer in an orchard that's too vigorous. So although we are talking about soil health and regenerative agriculture today, the whole farming system should be taken in consideration when you choose something simple like a cover crop, so that you don't have a nematode host, like Matthew have said, but you can also make your orchard too vigorous, or you can take away vigor from the orchard. So it becomes an additional tool that you can use in the whole management of the orchard. We are still apple farmers, and we are still producing apples, and that should still be the key focus. So you should go and sit down and say, what do I want to achieve with my cover crop? Do I want nitrogen in the system? Do I want to control the apple aphid? Do I want to control nematodes? Do I want to make an impact on mite control? And that will have an impact on the species that you choose to put into the orchard.
Thank you.
Don't be disheartened if you don't see the diversity growing. The plant diversity is a very simple soil health indicator. I think Anton also mentioned it. Just by looking what's growing on the soil, you can make an assumption probably of how healthy that soil is. So if you plant a 12 species diversity and you only see 3 of them growing in the first year, just be patient. As that soil becomes more healthier and more active, especially from a microbial point of view, the other species will pop out. The seeds doesn't go anywhere. It stays in the soil, and you'll probably be surprised if you see what's growing in the orchard.
Fantastic. Just for our audience, if you have any questions for our panelists, please feel free to type it in the chat box. We will get to your questions in a few minutes. We only have a few minutes left of this webinar, so please get your questions in so that we can respond to them before we finish. The next question, Hendrik, is for you. What is the expected journey for a farmer who wants to transition from a more chemical-inducive or chemical farming method to a more regenerative, eco-friendly, environmentally friendly approach? What does it mean for a farmer? What is this journey about in terms of cost, benefit, timelines, all of that, opportunities, risk, etc.?
Nitasha, all roads leads to Rome, they say. Eventually. So I think every journey will probably be different, but this journey will start with a change in core production principles, with scale in your business, to supply the crop needs with a combination of alternative and conventional solutions. More focus on generating both quantity and quality production to adhere to high value market demand to optimize income should still be our focus. Focus should be on cost per kilogram produced and not necessarily on the cost per hectare to produce. And there's a big difference in those two terms of quantifying your cost per kilogram to produce fruit, or to say it's costing me 10 Rand to produce on a hectare and you don't know what the output will be. Short-term production cost might increase, but longer-term yield and quality benefits will be way more. And a simple example is like Anton said, the resilience you bring into the system will probably give you that benefit. With increasing restrictions on chemical usage, we have to change to alternative solutions to be less dependent. And that's part of the journey. I don't think chemical interventions will disappear. It will always be part of the system, and they are good methods and production practices in terms of that. But again, the secret lies in diversity. If I see what we have managed by simply putting microbial diversity back into the orchard, of which we understand nothing at this stage, by adding more layers of diversity into the system, the benefits will probably be unexpected. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Anton, I will flight some slides as well, some pictures for your next response. But just tell us very quickly, what are some of the practices that you have stopped on your farm, and what have you implemented to improve the soil health? Yeah.
The 3 practices that we stopped that was disruptive to the soil health, the first one was we eliminated all herbicide use. 4 years ago, we decided no more herbicides. But then we decided we're not going to see these plants as weeds anymore. We're going to see them as pioneer plants or indicator plants, like you said, showing us what is really going on in the soil. And we see them as helping us to balance out the soil as they go through the different stages of succession. The next thing that we stopped, and we're going into our 4th year now, we stopped using chemical fertilizers. Now, this doesn't sound good, but we replaced the chemical fertilizers with natural amendments. The last thing that we did was we are in the process of reducing our chemical pesticides, but that is not that easy. We are still in a trial and error phase. So those were the 3 practices that we stopped with immediately.
And what are the practices that you've introduced?
Okay, the first one is we decided that we were going the compost route, and it's important to us. We differentiate between compost and biocomplete compost. Biocomplete compost, it's all about the beneficial microbes that needs to be, and they have to be in the right verhouding in the compost as well. So we applied the compost, then we apply compost extracts and activated compost extracts we apply as a foliar spray. The second thing that we did was we also went to cover cropping. And as they have explained, it's not that easy because the wit clover loves to grow everywhere and it's outcompeting almost all of the other cover crops on our farms. The third thing that we did was we started moving animals into our orchards and doing mock grazing. And these animals is helping us to control the pioneer plants or the indicator plants. And they are also helping us to graze all the cover crops to control them as well. We had to increase our animal numbers because all of a sudden you've got 600 hectares that you can graze. In the past, the orchards were just there, but now we can use the animals in them. And by increasing our livestock numbers, this provided us with an additional source of income. So that's what we did. We also used chickens to control the snout beetles in our orchards. But if you don't manage the chickens well, they'll take off all the cover crops and nothing is left here. But at least we know that they are controlling the snout beetles much better than the chemicals, because we ran a trial, the chemical control and the control of chickens, and the chickens did much better.
Thank you, Anton. I'm just going through some pictures that are on the slide. Can you just tell us what these are?
That's the one there is a microarthropod. That's what we see under the microscope when we do a soil analysis.
And tell us a little bit more of the books here that we see here. I know when I chatted to you, you talked about how instrumental they were in rediscovering your love for soil. Tell us quickly a little bit about this.
The first book that I would recommend is From Dirt to Soil. It was written by Gabe Brown. It's his family's story, how they moved from the normal, traditional to a more regenerative approach. I would go so far to say I think he was the father of regenerative agriculture. And the second book that you can read as well as Quality Agriculture by a chap called John Kempf. It's John Kempf. It's got much more technical information, but it's a very good book to read as well.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you very much to our panelists. We've come to the end of the questions that we wanted to share with you from our end. There are a few in the comments. Please bear with me. The first one is from Catherine. Through soil preservation techniques, those soil preservation techniques are somewhat region specific. How can South Africa agronomists maximize knowledge sharing better for improved research and development? Is there anyone who'd like to take on this?
You're a researcher.
There's a huge need for one would like to say sort of research on the foundational aspects of it. There are fora that information is shared on quite successfully. The Landbou Weekblad, we were inclusive in that. There's study groups. My issue and my background is research, is getting the fundamental research done. And yeah, there are a lot of people who were involved and they're going out of the system. They're old and, well, I'm one of them, old and grey. One wants a new promote this at a undergraduate university level. The aspects that are still very contentious, they don't go down very well. But yes, we need more formal groupings, hopefully with associated funding, to allow us to tackle those basic aspects, and in turn move if we're talking agriculture, you've got to move an entire community into thinking this way, and that is a very hot topic of debate at the moment. There's a need, and it's an obvious need, but people aren't moving.
Also, just to mention to our audience, if you follow us, Hortgro, on all our social platforms, there will always be links to future or current research and development in the industry. And you can also use that platform to bounce any questions of us. We always will have a response for you. The second question is from Willie. Are there consultants that offer assistance with implementing this? I think the regenerative approach to farming. If so, please provide contact details. I'm not sure if any of the panelists would like to provide that information. Otherwise, I can suggest that you can email us or you can follow us on our socials and request this. At the moment, we have Hendrik, who is actually running a consultancy, holistic horticulture at the moment. Hendrik, I don't know if you'd like to leave your contact details, or you can always just contact us or contact me, and I can pass on that information to the audience.
You can share it through the Hortgro information.
Yeah. You can always just email Lindy, who you've emailed for the link, and we will provide you with that support. From Quibus, did you incorporate mycorrhiza fungi in your trials for better uptake of nutrients? I'm not sure if I pronounced that correctly.
Yes, did you?
In the trials, is that for you, Matthew?
No, we did. I did compost mulch, wood chips, and green. There was no purposeful incorporation, but you are spraying teas and composts.
Yeah, but the mycorrhizal fungi, most of them are not from South Africa as well.
Yeah.
And they don't, what's the word I'm looking for? They don't, they're not compatible to some of our rootstocks and stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, that also raises a very interesting question, and that's microbiome within or near roots in regenerative ag. It's receiving some attention, but the door's wide open in terms of what we can do to improve that. Yeah.
The next question is from Elisa. What indigenous South African weeds should you look out for as a good indicator of soil health? We had a quick chat, and Anton said there's no such thing as a weed, just a misplaced plant. So maybe that question, what South African indigenous weeds we should look out for? South African indigenous.
We are looking for it ourselves.
Okay, watch the space.
Yeah.
We'll look out for that.
Sorry, Nitasha, I
Yes.
think the answer there is to look at the succession and not specifically a certain plant. If you start to convert a piece of soil and you stop spraying herbicides, the first stuff you see are very harsh, tough pioneer plants like broadleafed, valskraalhans, koperdraad, wit hondebossie, and that will stuff like kiesiblaar, and it will probably change over a period of time to more brassicas, legumes, and grass species coming in. So it will be area specific of what is growing there, but you must look at the succession in the soil in terms of what types of, rather look at species than specific plants. Okay,
fantastic. That's a good response. From Esther, most panelists refers to orchards and not cereals. Is there a future for regeneration agriculture in cereal cultivation, given the challenge of competitive weeds that are almost from the same family as cereals? We're focusing on Pullman stone, which is deciduous fruit industry, Hence, the discussion was not inclusive of other crops. But you can attempt that.
I want to answer that.
Please
question.
go for it.
We are actually learning from the row crop industry, producing cereals and pastures of cover cropping.
Okay.
It is an industry that I think is much more further in the development of utilizing cover crops in their rotational systems,
Yes.
and even undersowing and oversowing on the same pasture at the same time. So we are actually learning from you guys.
Fantastic.
What we are
I had the privilege of attending the 9th convention for conservation activation in Cape Town earlier this year, and they are way ahead of us.
Yeah.
Oh.
There's been, within the Western Cape context, sorry, I need to say this, there's been fantastic work driven by Western Cape government, and there have been some very neat studies done at Stellenbosch University in terms of rotations, conservation, ag, in wheat specifically, wheat canola.
Yes, thanks. Condi has a question. What has been the effect of the livestock grazing on soil compaction in the orchards? I think that's where you want to.
At the moment, none. You see, the cattle, they walk in the inter-rows, not in the intra-rows, so they walk there. But because of the cover cropping, the roots of the plants is always feeding the microbes, and it comes back to the aggregates that I've spoken about.
Yes.
So the soil is sustaining itself.
Fantastic. Thanks. There's a question for Matthew. The research done, you saw really good results. Isn't there a lot of questions that were generated through that research? What are those questions, and is Hortgro going to explore them? Question by Guru Becker.
That's a real Becker question, yeah. Yes, there's been a lag because we got invaded by invasive insects that was quite disruptive. There are follow-up trials that are going. We're looking very specifically at woolly aphid. There is most probably at least one or room for one long-term new design. I was kind of frustrated in the trial because you locked into the design. So you start and you're locked in, and Hendrik, he was managing the farm, so he had opportunity to see what we were doing, and he was doing really fun stuff next door, but we were still on our original treatments. But yes, there is a lot of potential follow-up work there. Yes.
Great, thank you. A question from Lucas. With regards to integration of livestock into the orchard setup, what regulations should be implemented to comply with the pre-harvest interval? Can you take us for that?
None. There's no
regulation on that at the moment.
There's none of that.
For discussion, I would like to know the other EU and other importing countries' attitude towards livestock that is post-harvest or before blossom, or what are the implications on food safety? Somebody needs to give attention to that.
I know that the compliance regulations in terms of global cap and that stuff, there is no regulation currently stating, but the auditors do get nervous if you apply organic material from, let's say, after blossom to harvest, and it's from a food safety point of view. Although the risk of contaminating the fruit are very, very, very low because it is organic, they do get nervous that you might get something like E. coli or whatever on the fruit. But the risk of that is really low, and it should just be handled from an informative point of view and not stating, you should state what you're doing.
Yes.
And just be open about it, saying we are using organic materials. It comes from a responsible source. it is a biocomplete compost that we're using and not raw manure. And that makes a big difference in terms of what they expect from you and the way that they handle it. So like anything that you apply in the orchard, there's risks associated in terms of food safety and auditing and everything. But if you handle it correctly and openly, I've never seen that it's a problem.
Fantastic.
It's
Thank you so
actually
much.
accepted very well.
Thank you so much. I think that there's time for one more question. How do you best manage the transition from conventional to regenerative? I know, Hendrik, you attempted to respond to that question. In a nutshell, anybody want to give some kind of...
Just do it.
Just do it, yeah.
Just do it and accept the fact that you're going to make mistakes. And by making those mistakes, you learn a huge amount. You've got to, and it doesn't matter where you start. You just start somewhere.
Start somewhere, yeah.
Yeah.
And I think this gives us more insight in terms of what the need is out there for guidance and information. And perhaps our sustainability footprint webinar series should also be tackling some of these topics in terms of the opportunities for the transition. Thank you. We just got a comment to say thank you. I think that's all that we've got time for. Perhaps a 20-second sum up from everybody. If you need to say anything pressing for the last 20 seconds. Nothing?
Up until now, the journey didn't disappoint us, and we are looking forward to what's going to happen in the future.
Thank you. Thank you.
I agree with Anton, and thanks to Hendrik and comment. It is something that's it's a very deep, very interesting experience seeing the transition and just witnessing it from a scientific point of view. It's absolutely fantastic.
Thank you.
I think I'm going to close with an old statement. You need to korrewompo. Just go on this journey. It's unknown. Take it on. And I think the mistake most people make in the journey is they start very small. And by doing that, it doesn't receive the attention within a system. Do it on scale. Change the production unit. Not just a small little trial in orchard. Leave a small control and start converting the way you think. It's a philosophical change. It's like a tongknoper. It's a philosophische verandering. And hoe jy goed doen. You need to change the way you think before you attempt to do the change. But you need to do it, yeah.
Thank you so much. I've thoroughly enjoyed engaging with our panelists today. And thank you so much, Hendrik, Anton, and Matthew. Really, really enjoyed this. If you have any further questions, you're welcome to respond to Lindy directly with your questions, and we can help link you. Or also stay tuned on our social media platforms for any upcoming webinars we have. The next webinar in our Footprint series will be on green financing in South Africa, and that will be in December. So thank you so much for engaging with us and for being part of this journey. From us at Hortgro, the technical team and the communications team, thank you, panelists, thank you, audience, and we look forward to just journeying and leaving behind a sustainable legacy. Till next time, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you too.